Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories. Welcome back to So Here's My Story. I'm Jody.
I'm Elliot.
And it is 2018.
It is 2018.
Actually, it's not. It's at this particular moment in time.
It depends.
It's 2017 still.
Well, it depends, to paraphrase Bill Clinton, what the definition of is.
What is.
Yes.
Right. By the time this episode hits the streets, it will be 2018 now.
That's right. Very exciting year. 18, as you probably know, is in numerology the Jewish number for life.
Oh, I did not know that.
You did not. Yes. Every Jewish letter, like A or Aleph in the Jewish alphabet, is 1, B or Bet in the Jewish alphabet is 2. And so each word in numerology has a numerical value. And so the Jewish word chai, which means life, is 18. And so for that reason, if you were giving a bar mitzvah gift of money, for example, you would give in multiples of 18.
So that I did know. I knew that part, but I didn't know that it meant the word life.
It does mean the word life. So 2018, it's a magical year.
It's the most wonderful time. Different. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Do you want to thank our sponsors, and then we'll hop into because I want to talk about you were talking about the year and like the theme of the year. I want to talk about like New Year's resolutions and how I feel about them and these things. So why don't you thank our sponsors?
So with that teaser, let me thank our sponsors, Tom Loveland and Mind Over Machines, Cat's Copy, the architecture firm of GWWO, and Marycraft Staffing and HR Solutions. Thank you so much.
So here's my story. I don't love New Year's resolutions. I do them. I get excited about them, but I have such a love-hate relationship with them. And so as I was thinking about today's episode and what story I might want to tell, I kind of want to break it down into pieces. So, because here's something I noticed. Oh, which interestingly, that is actually relevant, breaking it down into pieces. You
seem to surprise yourself with an expression of relevance. Hey, that's actually relevant.
I just thought of something relevant. Oh my God. Or obviously relevant. That's the problem, is everything in my brain feels relevant. Like the dots are connecting, like do, 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 do. All right. So, here's something I noticed. I've noticed it before, but I really noticed it this holiday season. And to sort of jump to the punchline a little bit, just so this won't seem completely irrelevant, it has to do with like what you measure. Because when you're doing New Year's resolutions, obviously there's usually something you're measuring that you want to do more of or less of.
Right.
And so I've been thinking a lot in the past 6 months really about this idea of like what you measure. And I have a couple like small like story snippets. And so one of them is, I don't have a big sweet tooth. I tend to like things that are less sweet, like shortbreads and things like that, than I do like candy bars. And so like I would never, ever, I can say with some certainty, I would never buy like a full candy bar and just open it up and eat it. And when my son does, if my son buys like an entire Twix or an entire Three Musketeers or something, it almost grosses me out, and I'm super judgy about it. I'm like, how can you eat like an entire candy bar? That's so gross. And yet. I was hoping there was an and yet. There's totally an and yet. When it comes to like those little Twix, like the bite-sized Twix things, I would totally knock back like 30 or 40 of those and not even bat an eyelash.
Sure. Of course.
The little bite-sized ones. I'm like,
it's hardly like eating anything.
Just another little bite.
It's a moose-bouche. Right.
Yeah. So, and there's a healthier version of this like noticing what you measure and how you measure it. And I will get around to like how you can actually like use this as a useful thing. But when I was doing the training for the Strong Woman competition, there was a series of exercises or series of workouts. I mean, not exercises, where we would come in one, and there were these like 12-minute segments where, the first time we did it, there was a pretty heavy weight, and we would have to do as many reps, as many sets of 3 as we could in that 12 minutes, resting as much as you needed to. And then the next time we came in and did that workout, the weight would go up some, and it was to do as many reps of 2 as you could do. And then the next time the weight went up even more. It was a pretty significant weight at that point, as many reps of 1 as you could do. Now, what's hysterical here is this is almost like the reverse of the candy bar thing. I get cranky when I have to do a lot of reps of something. So I don't like, 20 is absolutely my max. I get cranky, a little cranky at 15, 20, I start getting angry. If you asked me to do 30 of something, I'd probably say no. Like I don't like doing tons of reps of things. It pushes some button or something. Anyway, hysterically, when we were doing this exercise circuit I was telling you about, or this process, when we got to the reps of 1, I specifically remembered on the squats that we were doing, and I did 50 reps of 1 happily without getting cranky. But if you'd said to me, do 50 squats, I'd have been like, grumble, 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 grumble. But something about it being sets of 1 worked differently in my brain.
They were bite size.
I guess, yeah. I mean, and that's the funny thing. And I saw the same thing with when we had to do when we were drinking tons of water. Like if I tried to drink these big things of water, it didn't work. But if I drank like 20 of these small glasses. So for me, just me, I know that if I can break something down into like tiny little snippets, that some different part of my brain kicks in and I am more likely to do it than if I'm trying to bite off some great big thing. Doesn't mean that works for everyone. But for me, it's a really important thing for me to know that about myself when I think about things like New Year's resolutions or any kind of goal or something I want to do when I want to stop doing or do more of. Because otherwise, if I don't respect that about the way my brain works, I'm going to be slogging uphill to make any kind of change.
Well, and it reminds me, and by the way, as a spoiler alert, this is where we're going to, in about 3 minutes, lose the bulk of our listeners. But so I'm a huge Duke basketball fan, and I come by that rightfully because I actually went to the school, so I didn't just jump on the bandwagon. But I listen to virtually everything that Coach K has to say, and I find it deeply profound. And anyway, one of the things that he said when he was asked, how do you focus, if your team is really down, how do you focus on bringing them back from this huge deficit, a 20-point deficit, 25-point deficit, if you find yourself in that situation? And he said, I don't think about it. I don't think about the 20-point deficit or we have to get 25 or gain on the other team 25 points. I think about winning the next 5 minutes. That's all I think about. It's just winning the next 5 minutes. And if we do that and then we put together another 5-minute win and another 5-minute win, then this seemingly overwhelming deficit will take care of itself. And so that I really appreciated that kind of bite-sized thing, because when I look at a year, look ahead to 2018. And if I were to set, and I don't do this, but if I were to set some sort of goal that says, okay, I want to increase profits by 10% or 15% or whatever I want to do, over the course of the year, it can seem either overwhelming or too long a time horizon to be real to me.
Yeah.
But if you just focus on winning this week or winning this month, bite-sized chunks make it easier for me.
Yeah, bite-sized chunks is one of them, because I think what bugs me about New Year's resolutions, I mean, my God, they're so compelling. I'm coming off this holiday season and I feel gross. I've eaten too much. I've had too much to drink, too much sugar, too much fat, whatever. I don't feel like the way I like to feel health-wise. And so it's so compelling. And I'll tell you right now, I'm probably going to do this where I'll be like, okay, it's January 1, like I'm going to do everything differently. It's such a compelling, like I love
everything
like fresh starts are so compelling and I love them. And I think there's a lot of good energy to use there. That part of New Year's resolutions I love. Here's what I hate about them. They come with like this prepackaged, just add water, have shame kind of quality to them, where everyone feels crappy, or not everyone. So many times I see people feeling bad about their New Year's resolutions by like 3 weeks into January. If not, then by like mid-February, somebody, so often we're feeling bad about what we didn't do. And so knowing that, it just, like, if that's what we're going to set ourselves up for, I would just rather you not than set yourself up for something that you're going to feel crappy about in 4 to 6 weeks, because that's not a New Year's resolution. That's like hey, how can I feel crappy in 6 weeks? It doesn't feel useful. It doesn't get you what you want. So don't do that.
Well, it kind of reminds me, I think that there is a motivational force to some resolutions, but it reminds me of what they always taught in Scouts if you wanted to evaluate somebody, if you wanted to teach somebody something, and it would be stop, start, continue. So you would tell them, okay, you need to, and I do this when I teach public speaking as well. I'll give feedback, and sometimes I'll ask the students to evaluate themselves on a stop, start, continue basis. I need to stop doing this. It would be a good idea to start doing this, which is the New Year's resolution part. But also focus on, hey, I did this really well. I should continue this. I should build on that. And I find for me that the difficult part of New Year's resolutions is the inherent judgment of failure.
Yeah.
You know, you assess that you failed, so all of my resolutions are going to be along the line of, here's how I make a complete break with the train wreck that I was in 2017. And this is why 2018 is going to be a rebuilding of myself, which obviously I failed to do in the previous year.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I don't like.
It's the goals themselves are laced with shame.
Yes.
To begin with.
Right.
Here's how I'm bad and awful and wrong, and here's how I'm going to course correct that.
It's infused with shame. Let's infuse our holiday with shame.
Fusion. Like a side dish of shame.
Yeah.
With the spritzer.
But I find that maybe I should give more attention to the continue part. You know, what really worked well? What did I like, and what do I want to build on, as opposed to completely transform?
Well, that reminds me a tiny bit, although it's not exactly the same thing, so maybe it's actually has no relevance. But
that was one hell of a segue.
Wasn't that?
So I'm going to build on what you said.
It's like a painful segue by changing the topic
entirely.
Well, actually, this gives a tip of the hat to Christy Schmier, who, in addition to being our brilliant show notes person and clever writer for the team, you may or may not know this about her, but she's also runs a lot of health programs. I do this like health reboot that she does every year. She calls it a liver cleanse. This is not your like cayenne pepper liver cleanse kind of thing. It's just really healthy eating. And she has, more than anyone on the planet, given me a much healthier relationship with food than I've ever had before. And part of it has been just always being this tether. You know, she is someone who loves good food. So it's not an unattainable thing working with her. And so that's why I've always appreciated the programs that she does. But that's not my point here. My point here is in doing one of her programs, and she has this free Facebook group called Health U, which is like my tether back to healthy eating and sound nutritional advice. But she, through her and being in that program, I learned one of the most important things that I ever had about nutrition, because somebody was having a conversation about or asking a question about like, how do you not eat carbs or sugar or whatever it was. It was all about the like, how do you keep from these things that you have cravings about, and how do you not do the things? And she said something, and I'm paraphrasing her, so Christy, feel free to edit this in the show notes to be what you actually said. She said, I don't want you focusing on what you can't have. If you focus on what I've asked you to put in your diet, so like get this many servings of vegetables, drink this much water, there are these like handful of things that she wanted you to do more of, eat these kinds of like cruciferous vegetables or whatever. If you do those things that I've asked you to do, put those things in, and you still have cravings after that, let's talk about that. But you're putting your focus on what you're trying to take out versus trying to put in what you need. And I come back to that over and over and over again, not just for nutrition. This will surprise you that I have taken one thing and copy and pasted it as a metaphor to something else. Shocking, I know. But I think about that all the time in so many different areas, whether it's my business planning or my relationships or whatever. I think when you're focusing on what you can't have or what's not working, it fuzzes out the system somehow. Whereas if I'm like, okay, what do I want? What do I need to be putting in, and starting there? I don't know. Is that just me? That's
No, it makes sense. So what I was thinking about, because I do think it has applicability to all sorts of different things, but when I look at clients, for example, there's a saying that bad clients push out good clients. So if you have a bad fit and you find yourself spending more and more of your resources and your mental energy trying to make it a good fit, because time is finite, you don't have the time for the good clients, for the really good fits. And I think that what I took from what you were saying, what Christy was saying, is that if you focus on the good clients, the things that you really should be working with, the things that you should be having, that can start minimizing the time you actually have and the attention you actually spend on the bad clients. Yeah. So it's kind of a reversal of focus. Instead of really worrying about those bad clients or the ones that aren't good fits or the ones that are tying you up in knots, if you just reverse your thinking and focus on the things you should have, focus on the great clients and make those terrific, then maybe that will reduce your propensity for taking in the bad fits.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think the applications of the metaphor are pretty wide swath. It also reminded me of a different, and this is relevant, because a whole other way I like to think of this opportunity for New Year's resolution, because I love the opportunity of the new year.
Right.
Like
absolutely.
I will never say bad things about any, because I feel the same way in September with like the back to school energy also feels like a fresh start moment. So I love fresh start moments where I've got a blank canvas and I can make it what I want. So embracing that, I think there is this other way to look at it that's not so shame-laden, which is sometimes I think of it as like a theme for the year. I know some people who pick like a word for the year that's their guidepost for the year. Like, okay, if what I want is freedom, does this decision, how in this decision moves me closer to or further away from freedom? Have a theme that you can check back in as a litmus test.
Yeah.
But one way I've heard it stated that I really like is just noticing how do I want to feel? What do I want to feel more of? And to me, that's different than, because just imagine for a second, like I want to feel, I was talking earlier about how like toxic I feel at the moment, like full of shortbread and bourbon and like
beef and cheese
and like, I want to, and so right now I don't feel good. And I want to feel good in my body. I want to have energy. I want to sleep well. There are like, I want to feel certain ways. And if you really scratch down to the itch, it's that I want to feel good. And I think in the moment, shortbread and cookies and whatnot feel like they're going to give you that feeling, but they don't. And you know that. So, but it's hard to say no to the shortbread because you're like, but maybe it'll make me feel that way that I want to feel. But if I'm putting in all those vegetables, if I put in the things that I know will, like I have this sort of canary in the coal mine for myself. When I feel like a Diet Coke is the only thing that will really quench my thirst, that is for me a like danger, Will Robbins. Like that's a place where I know that what I really need is to hit pause and get some like significant water hydration, like eat some good vegetables. Like that's the course correct for me because I know it's the wrong signal. So this thing of like, how do you really want to feel? And it's not always how you want to feel in the moment. It's sort of like what's the feeling I'm going for, and using that as a litmus test.
But that strikes me as obviously not just New Year's resolution. It strikes me as perfectly aligned with what we've talked about as your approach to clients that come to you, because your clients will come to you and mine to me with a specific set of solutions that they have decided they need. So in my world, it's, I need you to draft this, or I need you to create that. In your world, it may be, as you've said, somebody wants more money or somebody wants to grow their business, etc. And I think the focus not on what you want to attain, what the deliverable is, but rather what you want to feel. So you want to grow your business so you can what? It comes back to feeling. It comes back to what's the ultimate goal, and so the ultimate goal isn't necessarily to go on a quest for the greatest shortbread ever, as compelling as that may seem in the moment.
That sounds really awesome.
Doesn't it? It's like a vacation tour.
Although I already know where it is. My mother-in-law makes the greatest shortbread ever. But anyway, go ahead.
But I think the ultimate goal is, okay, well, how do I want to feel after this is done? Whether it's with your business, what do I want to make room for in my life? What do I see as the benchmark for quality of life and how I want to feel and how I want to move through the world, as opposed to what's the short-term goal that I want to attain? The satisfaction I get from shortbread or Diet Coke, which is frankly breakfast for me. But, but instead really focus on, and more mindfully on, what is the ultimate outcome of this?
Yeah, I think of it sometimes. I say, like, how do I want to feel? And I'll be honest, like, for me, the like listen to your body is not a helpful thing, because in the moment, my body says you want to eat shortbread and lay on the couch. And, yesterday morning when I had my 9 o'clock gym appointment, my body was not saying to me, let's go to the gym. It was not. So listen to your body is not really helpful for me. So I think of it, I can't ask myself, how do I want to feel? Because my short-term brain is a very loud talker. I sort of add this extra word of like, how do I want to feel tomorrow? Tomorrow, I will wish that I had gone to the gym, because I'll feel better tomorrow if I go to the gym, or if I drink the water instead of the Diet Coke or whatever. And I keep bringing these back to health things because I think a lot of us make health resolutions in January. But I also just think it's such a great metaphor for everything in the world. Like it's so relatable. But there's another thought I had a minute ago, and now I might have lost it. So...
Well, I'll tell you, so I'll fill in time while
you talk for a minute while I think of the better thing.
I will talk, and you can tune out because this isn't substantive. But actually, when I go back to where we started this conversation, which is the New Year's resolutions, and you and I were talking before we started recording about resolutions for, so here's my story, resolutions for the podcast. Mm-hmm. And it strikes me that was exactly in line, because what I was thinking about was, well, gee, I really want to build our Facebook group, or I really want to make sure that people know how to reach us. And through this conversation, what I realized is the Facebook group is great, and I think it can be great. But what I really want to feel with So Here's My Story is connected. Yeah. I want to feel connected to our audience. I love it when we get feedback on Twitter and Facebook. Yeah. And the Facebook group you and I had discussed and we're going to be building, but it's not to get, well, geez, I want to get 5,000 Facebook group members. It's because I want the feeling of being connected to the community that we feel so much a part of. Yeah. It's absolutely true, because nothing makes me happier than, we got a couple days ago, someone posted on our Facebook page, how much they loved this last episode we did. Yeah. It was Julie Gabrielli. Thank you, dear. I got a text message from a friend who said they loved this last episode and they were going to use it with their staff next week or next month when they all get back together. Like nothing makes me happier than that. And so you're right. Like the Facebook group is the logical, tangible manifestation of something that we believe will move us closer to this thing we want to feel, which is connected. And this is such an important point. It doesn't mean that setting that goal of setting up the Facebook group is bad or good from a New Year's resolution. I just think there's a lot of value and a lot of risk in not taking a moment to be really clear on what feeling you're after, because sometimes you might be picking the wrong goal, but it also might mean that like if we were so focused on the Facebook group, it could be that something else pops up that would give us that feeling of connection, and we might miss it because we're so focused on the Facebook. Well, right. So if we set a resolution that by 12/31/2018, we'll have 1,000 members of our Facebook group. We're really going to build. That's our resolution. We're going to build our Facebook group. That's not the point. To me, that's the wrong resolution.
Because we could have 1,000 members in the Facebook group and not have the feeling of connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, or just as you said, we could get into it and realize, you know what? That feeling of connection, the way our community reaches out to us and we get feedback and we can really build the conversation, just doesn't happen to be through the Facebook group. That was our best guess.
Right.
But that didn't.
Like we've talked about possibly doing a regular Zoom group or whatever the technology is, Google Hangouts, Skype, whatever. Some sort of Zoom group where we actually get people into conversation. That may be much more directly focused to what we want to feel. We have no idea. We're going to play around with it. But yeah, so finding this theme, knowing what you want to feel, because what I would, if I could wave my magic wand over New Year's resolutions, it wouldn't be to do away with them. It would be to right size them, to chunk them down so that they feel manageable and say like, okay, this is what I think I want more of in 2018 or less of in 2018. What does my January need to look like? Bring some kindness and like grace to it so that you're not setting yourself up to be angry at yourself at the end of January.
No, and I think really what we've talked about are that there are several different components that are often missing. One is the self-compassion.
Yeah.
And the recognition that you've probably accomplished an awful lot and that resolutions don't mean burn it all down and to give short shrift to what you've already done.
Yeah.
The second is if you are going to set the resolution, to focus on the right things. And for us, what we were talking about is, what do you want to feel like? How do you want to feel, as opposed to what is this numerical achievement or this, the wrong kind of measurement. And then the last part is
also measuring in a rhythm of measurement that excites you and inspires you versus shuts you down.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. The last part is the increment.
Like, thanks for ruining my last.
No, that's, I so value your interruptions. So no, the last part is the right increments.
No one could love me if they don't like being interrupted.
Exactly
it's just
right.
part of the package.
And so those are, I think, the components of resolutions. And that's why I agree with you. I have a love-hate relationship with them as well. But I love the right kind, but I think they're so rare and fleeting.
Well, and I just want to add, just as we're wrapping up here, I want to add one last piece to it, which is I started to say have the right kind of support for the accountability support going forward. But I don't think support is the right word, because I think two things. One, one of my favorite little books, which I will make sure Christy gets in the show notes, because I think it's called something like The Secret Language of Highly Effective Teams or something. It's a horrible title, but it's a great little book that talks about accountability, not as after the fact punitive, but accountability as a get in front of it. How do we set ourselves up to not get off the rails in the first place? And how do we work as a team to do that? So it's a great little book, but, to me, the thing about that is having that upfront accountability thought process of how you set yourself up to not fail. But then to me, the word that is so relevant is having a tether back to what you want. And it's because you will get off track. And that's the part that I get frustrated by of this. We go into January thinking like, okay, I'm going to do everything differently. And then when things go wrong, you're like, oh, well, there you go. I failed. Like, I'm off the track. Versus, and I'll just rely once more on sort of a weight and health kind of thing. Everyone talks about the best, if you lose weight quickly, you'll gain it all back. Or if you do this, I don't think there's a right way to lose it. Like, no matter whether you lose it, I've lost it fast, I've lost it slow. If I don't have tethers back to the things that support me and keep me on track, I would gain it back. So having the kind of support, the kind of tethers, whether that's people in your life or groups you join or somebody to support you in staying on track, and someone who can help remind you what you want and be kind to you, remind you to be kind to yourself when it doesn't go perfectly, so that you can dust yourself off and do one little thing the next day that puts you towards what you want.
And begin again. So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories.
Your stories.
You can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us. Which is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jody Hume.
And I'm Elliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.